Hey everyone, I've got Hana Dhanji on the show today, and she is the CEO and founder of Hana Dhanji Executive Coaching. And we are talking about imbalances, mind, body, and soul, and how that affects your financial well-being and the ability to achieve these financial goals. So as a total wealth manager and looking at your total wealth journey, we talk about the impediments and we talk about certain things that we can look at to help you get on your way. So I hope you enjoy the episode. I'm going to encourage you to take notes because you're not going to want to miss it. So welcome back, everyone. And I have Hana Dhanji, the CEO and founder of Hana Dhanji Executive Coaching with me today. And Hana, why don't we first talk a little bit about you? Why don't you tell everyone, how you came to be an executive coach, and a fine one at that. I have personal experience with Hana and completely, advocate for you and how you've helped me. And I just wanted the opportunity for people to, see that and share that. And so why don't you tell us a little more about how you came to be an executive coach?
Thank you, Penny. Thank you so much for having me on this show. I really didn't expect to end up as an executive coach, but now that I'm here, it is probably one of the most natural fits that I could have imagined for the skill sets that I have. So kind of rewinding a little bit, I did my undergraduate studies in psychology back at U of T in 2010. That's when I graduated. And at that point, it was a passing interest. I thought, at some point I'll engage in a practical career, something in the traditional sphere of law or medicine or business. And that this was just kind of a passion that I would explore at the opportunity, if the opportunity presented itself, which it did. Right. And I went on from there to pursue a master's in international affairs. I was studying in Switzerland for a couple years, worked at the World Health Organization, spent some time as a diplomat. In fact, I worked at the Canadian Permanent Mission to the UN in Switzerland for 6 months as the global health attaché. So really saw myself initially going down the path of diplomacy. I returned to Canada, though, at a time when a lot of the embassies worldwide were being closed in Canada. And so did what any good liberal arts students would do and decided to apply to law school because they couldn't figure out what else to do. That was a great fit, though, because, long term, I always thought, you want a job that's going to give you stability. You want a job that's going to pave the way for financial security. You want a job that's going to, bring pride to your parents and, give you the prestige that you've always wanted. Mm-hmm. Especially as growing up as somebody from a low income background, that dream was always there. So I did go to law school, very much enjoyed my time at the University of Toronto, got my MBA simultaneously. It was a tough time because I was also working 2 jobs to put myself through it.
Yeah, and I can relate to that.
I worked that hard to reach this zenith that most people dream of, which is getting a Wall Street position at a top 3 firm in New York. It's just that when I got there, it wasn't what I thought it would be. And it's not that it's not an incredible opportunity to get great training, to hone your skills in negotiation and critical thinking, and judgment. But for me, I've been an empath my whole life. I've been somebody who cares deeply about the human connection and the way that we find motivation and meaning and purpose in our lives. And to not be able to explore that fully at a job that I spent 18 hours a day at did not at all feel like I was bringing my full self to work. So when I left, I had at that point spent time in New York, London, and Dubai. When I left to start a new position, I knew it wasn't going to be in law. And I initially thought it might be going back into government. But once you've tasted a little bit of what it's like to be your own boss, to, play at the highest level, you can't take that step backward. I'm not the same person anymore that I was. So yeah. What I did was I thought, what does corporate law and psychology, my first passion, have in common? And the answer at first glance would be nothing. But for me, it was, how can I take corporate professionals who are in similar positions where they're not feeling as motivated, they don't feel like they're bringing their full selves to work? How do I work with that cohort and bring them a sense of meaning and purpose in their lives? So long-winded story, but that's how I ended up here.
And I think that's how we ended up, I think, in a sense of working together, because I myself, as a vice president portfolio manager, you worked so hard over the years to get to, a certain level for yourself. And to me, it's almost like your own accomplishments of, yes, attaining that, level of stability, income stability, being able to, focus on certain goals now that no longer really include, how do I pay my monthly bills on time, or how do I, right? We're past that.
Yeah.
But the way we connected was from a mutual, actually good friend and colleague of mine. But I found myself at a point in time where, no matter how much, love and effort and everything that I put into my job, there was a feeling of emptiness. And there was a feeling of, I've gotten myself this far in life, and I knew there were pieces that were still missing, but I couldn't really figure out, like, how do I even go about, tackling that at this point? And the reason for this conversation today is really because I know that the fact that I felt this way, there are many people out there that are in the same boat, but it all, translates back to how you're viewing yourself, how you're feeling. If there's certain imbalances along the way, how can that essentially affect your financial well-being? Because at the end of the day, everything we do is always mirrored to how we're doing on the financial journey, on our total wealth journey. And so today, I think that's what we're going to be talking about. And we got onto a conversation that I found, really helpful and really connected, really what I do and what I believe in, and what I showcase to clients when we're looking at our total wealth journey, even what helps me in managing their investment portfolios, because we tend to look at, obviously, the long term, and we look at and position portfolios from a long-term strategy perspective. But when there are certain things, certain life events that happen that, put our clients into an imbalance, it often can translate into some irrational or emotional behaviors in terms of how they view what the current market is doing, having some insecurities maybe about how the portfolio is positioned, and maybe they want some short-term relief of, just pull my money out. I just want to see it in cash. I don't want to see this kind of volatility, but at the end of the day, volatility comes with, investing in the markets. And when you have a long-term strategy, over time, that's the whole point. It works itself out. But this is where there's some impediments to, if you're allowing the client, or if you're taking those irrational decisions, you can often just, obviously, throw yourself off that mark of building toward and accomplishing those financial goals, when you're your own, I look at it from the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you bring in a key role in really kind of marrying these two things together for me, the concepts of understanding where you are in your personal journey and how that's mirroring your financial goals. And what I wanted to really talk to you about today is the imbalances. So we all have different bodies of imbalances, or different bodies in general. And when we're balanced, life is good. No matter what's happening out there, we have the confidence to be, we have the confidence to be comfortable in any situation. But when we feel that we're not, in kilter on what we're doing, that can play a role in how we are viewing ourselves, how we're viewing our financial well-being. So why don't you tell us a little more about what these bodies are?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things I noticed, especially with high-performing individuals who, as you say, come to, their financial wealth planning and say, look, I seem to have done really well in my career.
Yeah.
I've kind of maybe got the personal life thing sorted out, or I'm working on it, but my real focus right now is legacy. This idea that everything that I worked for in my life can't just be backward looking, that there is a future I need to prepare for. There is a series of opportunities and doors I want to open. Well, that comes with not just the wealth part of you. You have to bring your full self into your future, which means you can't just plan financially. You've got to figure out how you're going to sustain the momentum that brought you the wealth in the first place.
That's right.
And so those bodies that we talk about and what I teach in my coaching practice is that we always have five key metrics that help us establish wholeness
Mm-hmm.
as we move forward in life. And that's your mental body, emotional, spiritual, financial, and physical. And part of what I teach, and the idea here is that if any one of these is undernourished for a consistent period of time, it will cannibalize the gains in the other areas. So, for example, if you're doing really well physically, you go to the gym, you eat right, and you're doing really well financially, you've got that promotion, your salary bump has come, the company's expanding, you've gotten a raise, um, but you aren't doing well emotionally. So those negative thoughts around self-esteem, around not feeling good enough, around feeling burnt out are starting to kick in. That emotional undernourishment will over time cause physical illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get sick, your immune system will be worn down, you won't be able to focus as much at work, your clarity will disappear. Once you are compromised physically, it's only a matter of time before that starts to affect your performance, and that will jeopardize your financial gains. So the idea is that at every point in our lives, we need to check in with ourselves
Right.
mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually. And there are ways that we can create internal feedback loops to let us know, hey, I think I need to go and recharge because mentally I'm not feeling great, or emotionally I'm feeling worn down, or physically I haven't been going to the gym. And that when you take care of each of these in tandem, you actually start to see massive breakthroughs
Right.
in the kinds of results you can achieve in all areas of your life. So the financial body isn't just a physical manifestation of something else, it's a pillar. It's one of the five core pillars of your ability to succeed in life.
Yeah, it really is. And when we talk about imbalances, why don't we talk about a little bit of the examples? So for the people that are watching this, I mean, it's your time to even do your own little self-check, right, of where you are. And, when we're looking at, an imbalance on the mental front, what are some of the trigger points that we
Mhm.
see?
Yeah, a mental imbalance will often look like confused thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You're not clear in your vision or your goals. It can be inconsistencies between what you say and what you do. Those incongruencies are always an indication that there's a lack of balance. You aren't able to trust your own judgment. As soon as you lose faith in that, good luck trying to make decisions about what you're going to eat the next day or your relationships or how you're going
And
to.
yeah,
Mhm.
and we see that especially when I have some clients that come to me when they've just gone through a life event where it's completely thrown their whole environment, their whole foundation off course, and that's typically one of the first things where especially if we're talking about someone that's going through a divorce after many years of marriage and kids and all that, and they've assigned themselves to a vision of what life was going to look like with this partner, all of a sudden that's gone. There is a level of, and experiencing that again with my mom and my backstory of, as a child having my father pass away intestate, and my mother having to figure out everything for herself. That plays a key role, and it plays a key role on making those immediate decisions that you're making at that time can in fact, if you're making those decisions just to satisfy a short term level of right need to kind of bring some kind of calm or just make you feel like I don't want to feel uncomfortable anymore, that can actually impact you in the long run.
100%.
Yeah, and that's important, and I think it's important to really look at that and acknowledge it, but then take the time to have the conversations and bring the right people in, right?
Yes.
That can
Yeah.
empower you, that can show you some of that clarity of what's happening and how they can help you get on course. So that's one aspect. So let's talk a little bit about the emotional side of things.
Yes, absolutely. Just touching as well on something you brought up right before we jump into the emotional side.
Yeah.
I really appreciated what you were talking about when you said, look, when there is a shock to some otherwise normal consistency in your life. So there's a death in the family, a child moves out for the first time, there's a divorce that occurs. Any kind of shock to an otherwise normal pattern means that you need to stabilize, not create more inconsistencies.
Right.
The only way for us to recover is to be able to deal with one shock at a time and restabilize. So, in the middle of a divorce, that's not the time to go and start making rash financial decisions where you have a long term plan in place. Like having a trusted advisor like yourself or an executive coach like me can help prime that stability,
Right.
can help allow you to get to that place of restabilization and balance much quicker.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Creating additional shocks at a time of shock is only going to wear out the five bodies much more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads me into the discussion right now around the emotional balance. That this especially, this applies to men and women both, but especially women going through a divorce who may have dependents. So my mom, for example, was a single mom with three kids after her divorce. And for her, financial planning became a ritual of absolute discipline. There was no room for quick decision making. Everything had to be measured very carefully. There wasn't room for sort of impulse buying
Right.
or unnecessary expenses.
Everything was very calculated. Everything was very deliberate for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that allowed her, that level of consistency on the financial plane allowed her the space to be gentle with herself through the emotional ups and downs that came with it, because there was another baseline that was holding her steady. So she was able to be clear in her thinking, clear in her finances, clear in, looking after herself physically so that she could deal with the emotional fluctuation. And then once the emotions stabilize, we can talk about more creative financial planning.
Yeah.
So any one of them should only ever be varying at a time if possible. If two or three are in flux at the same time, the other two pillars will have a lot of stress on them to try and hold it up.
And you make a good point there, because again, from the perspective, from a total wealth management perspective, and again, assessing, someone who's got, a pool of assets that I'm managing for them, that's something that we always consider in terms of, okay, do they have the willingness and the ability to take on a certain level of risk? And then we get into, a little deeper dive of, what kind of, cognitive or emotional biases are they showcasing right now that might either help or hinder, their current circumstance and then their future. So that right there that you mentioned, especially when there's certain emotional biases that get in the way, I take that extra step of really assessing, does it hurt them to be more conservative in the short run just to help stabilize the other moving parts before we were ready to have that long-term conversation of other things, right? That's very, very important. And so, some people, again, whether it's, a bad, financial event that they've gone through in the past, where now they're looking at, I'm transitioning now to retirement, and, my husband just passed away, and I just, came into consideration, or just came into, finding out that, the money wasn't managed properly, or we could have had this X amount of money, but now we're only left with this. They have this sense of almost like scarcity, where even when they're receiving their own retirement pension plan, that's pretty healthy, and I'm going, you're going to be fine. They go, nope. I want to keep it in cash. I don't want to be in the markets. I had a bad experience in the markets. So there's you need to work with them, right, and kind of get them through that mindset and that level of stability, because you can see from the outside looking in all the benefits that can happen with some of these strategies that we can put in place. But you have to almost get to where they are first and create, like you said, that level of stability to then help them move on and level up, if you will, from achieving those other goals that they thought maybe those are just out of my reach now.
It's such an interesting point you make, because one of the things that I think is often underappreciated is how much your job as a wealth manager and mine as an executive coach is about educating.
Yeah.
That there is an information asymmetry that exists between what we know in our particular fields. So for me, being on the inside of the corporate world has given me insight into what that looks like. And for you, having broad exposure to how markets work, gives you unique insight into the value it can hold, especially for people heading into retirement or long-term planning or come out of a divorce. It is so important that decisions don't get made before the education piece is filled in.
Absolutely.
As you say, a large part of the success, the long-term success and your assets under management, that the growth of both relies on there to be as few inconsistencies in perception and bias and in the reality of how things work. And if we can contribute to the leveling up of the awareness of the people we serve, then they can actually start to make informed decisions, because emotional, rational, irrational, rather, quick decisions on the basis of reactivity is not taking control of the situation. It is simply letting your emotions control it. But if you can act in a situation of adversity that puts you in a place of advantage, that is literally the definition of resilience. To take a bad situation, flip it on its head, using knowledge, information, and resources available to you.
And over time, we do, through our life events, build that level of resilience, right? Yeah. So even if you think of it, even for me and you, when we first, went through schooling and then get our first job, at that point, if we had a major financial event that happened, that would obviously knock us back big time. But the fact that we've had so many years now in what we're doing and building up our net worths and our savings, and even just understanding and knowing the tools that we have that can get us through this, it does build that level of resilience. So the next life event that happens, at the end of the day, we're building ourselves up to be able to say, I got scratched a little bit and I didn't get a full wound and I didn't need stitches. So that's key. And I think it's really important for people to understand that gets built over time. And if it's the young ones that are listening to this right now, I mean, just don't go full throttle on craziness.
It's hard not to sometimes.
I know it's hard not to, in a way. And it's like, if you're going to make a stupid mistake, do it when you're younger, because it's not going to hurt. It'll balance itself out down the road. But, it's still, take calculated risks and just stop and think first before you make certain decisions. So that's the emotional piece of things. And so and then what about the physical? Because we talked about it a little bit in terms of what kind of manifestations happen on the physical side. And really, when we're feeling down, when we're feeling depressed, if we're stressed and just overworked, we tend to just forget about some of the basic things that can help us get back into just a level of balance of going, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, the physical side is special because it extends so far beyond just the basic, eat well and exercise. It's about retaining a sense of ownership over the energy within your body. And so that can be restored through meditation. If you practice any sort of energy balancing through Kundalini yoga or any other kinds of activities which balance the onset of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight response. When we're in high pressure, high stress environments, our cortisol levels go up, your adrenaline is pumping, you're constantly at high levels of alertness. And overindulgence or an overexercise of that sympathetic nervous system can often then lead to high levels of anxiety, right, the inability to switch off at night. You just feel overrun, you're overworking yourself. Mm-hmm. The downtime is restorative for a reason. It assists with cell repair. It assists with emotional repair. It helps you get mental clarity. It helps with your performance in all areas of your life. So the way to exercise the relaxed, deep breath, parasympathetic nervous system is to actually set aside protected time to nurture yourself. That self-care piece is as instrumental to your long-term success, even in a competitive environment, as being switched on. Mm-hmm. If you lose the ability to turn that switch, you essentially lose the ability to manage your energy. And if you can't optimize your energy expenditure, you will decline over time. Your performance and your clarity, your motivation, your ability to achieve breakthroughs will decline over time.
Yeah, that's very true. And I know you talked about a story which was really interesting about two teams on the Arctic.
Yes. Oh, yeah. This is one of my favorites.
And I want you to share that because it sticks with me. And I'm like, and this is where too, when, and I think we all get like this, where we get excited and we get like really jazzed up over what we're doing and we're taking on new clients and all that. But then we think, okay, what's the realistic timelines here? And sometimes we get over ambitious and we're like, okay, well, I'm going to just work through the weekend. I'm going to just like get this all done and, let's, and on to the next. But we're not, but we need a level of, endurance. Obviously we got to practice endurance, practice a certain behavior of, focusing on the long run and pacing ourselves. So I want you to share that story because I think it's a great one about pacing yourself.
Yes, pacing yourself and energy optimization is so important. This is called the 20-mile march. And it's a story I learned about recently, but that has been so powerful in terms of how I use my time. So the story goes that there were two teams, a team A and a team B, that were both on an Arctic expedition. And they had to make it from their base camp to the point where they were going to then take the ice samples. So let's say, their destination point. Mm-hmm. Team A's strategy was that they would, in good weather, so when it wasn't snowing or storming in the Arctic, they would go as far as they could on a given day toward the destination point where they would eventually take the soil samples, or rather the ice samples. Mm-hmm. Team B had a completely different strategy. Their idea was that no matter what the weather showed for that day, no matter how stormy or cold or icy it was, or how beautiful it was outside, they were going to consistently march 20 miles a day. So Team A and Team B set off from base camp, heading in the direction of the destination on the same day at the same time. Team A starts to make its, way forward, and Team B does the same. It turns out that Team B, on the basis of consistent, measurable, sustained action that was at a reasonable pace, not only made it to the destination point ahead of Team A, but they actually lapped them on the way back. So they passed Team B on the way back to base camp. Team B still hadn't even made it to the destination point. And the only difference was that Team B consistently every day marched 20 miles, rain or shine.
Right.
Whereas Team A waited for the weather conditions to be favorable before they ever made a move. And they never knew how long they were going to wait until the next sunny day, which created a lot of inconsistencies in their performance and therefore inconsistencies in their output.
And that resonates greatly for all the procrastinators out there. And I'm going to call myself out because sometimes there are things where I'm like, I'm just going to wait till, it's sunny out for me to go for my walk. I don't need to do it now. Yeah. But it's that, I think to me, the storyline as well is if you're always waiting for the perfect conditions to just give yourself the okay to go do something, it's not going to be achievable and you're never going to get there essentially. And by doing that, it's a disservice to yourself because you're not implementing and exercising just the skills. And at the end of the day, clarity comes from doing. So you got to keep doing and keep, getting to that goal that you want, rain or shine, to make yourself feel good, to make yourself feel like I've accomplished something and really see the results.
100%. Yeah. It's the paralysis of perfection.
There you go.
If you can't get comfortable with taking massive, imperfect action, so the ability to just step outside and go for that run, even if it's drizzling a little bit, or to, make the first investment, even if you don't have a lot in your account. Yep. It doesn't matter what your starting point is. Consistency will always win out over just one big day with one big win. And financial planning, similar to the way I teach coaching, is that it's a muscle. You have to exercise it every day. You can't just suddenly come in with a wad of cash one day and say, this is my financial, plan for the future. It's about the small deposit.
And I do. And I talk to a lot of prospects and clients that say, you know what, I like what you have to say. And I feel like we could really work well together, but I want to wait. I want to wait for the markets to get back into a certain level. I want to wait for, right? I want to feel comfortable that the markets are going to be at a certain stabilized, or I just feel like it's too rocky right now. So I'm going to wait. And it's like, you can't pick the time. So you can't time the markets in terms of that entry point right off the bat, to achieve that goal. You have to just start somewhere. Let's just get in a little bit. And for me, it's, if you're coming from a place of just cash and you're saying, okay, Penny, this is my wad of cash. I need you now to look after it. Okay, bye. I'm not going to just put it all into the market right away, right? there's certain levels of, understanding your goals and the timelines for each goals. But if this kind of money has never seen or participated in the markets before, you're staging it in over time. You're not just, doling it out all at once and going, the first few months it's going to be a little more irate than normal, but just don't look at your statements. You got to just understand what you're getting into and taking those steps, right, along the way. So to me, that's how how we can relate these things, and really it mirrors someone's behavior, right, in terms of how they approach, other goals and how they live their life and how they're approaching their investments.
And I think that you're so right, Penny. The one important thing that people really need to hear, and if you take away one thing from today's conversation, let it be this: there is no wrong first step except not to take it.
Exactly.
You only get better at investing, you only get better at your performance at work when you seek to improve yourself and take action immediately. And it's okay to make mistakes. Start small.
Right.
You can learn from them a lot more readily than waiting for some element of perfection to enter your life. It never appears.
Right.
But if you can understand that perfection is born out of taking action and consistently revising, stretching yourself, moving outside your comfort zone, seeking the resources and the expertise around you to get to where you want to go, that's when results happen. It's not from wishful thinking. It is from taking action, even when it's imperfect, even when you're scared, even when it requires a measure of trust. Especially when it comes to you, Penny, you are absolutely the person that people can trust. I've been able to work with you. I know your character. I've spoken to people who have, been helped by you or worked with you. And I can honestly say you are a world-class professional. And it's not only a pleasure to be here, but to talk to your audience today and just share how amazing you are at what you do. And you come from a place of having been through it yourself. Yeah. You don't talk from a theoretical place.
That's
You've
right.
been through.
That's right. And that's to me, that's really key in terms of why I even chose, this industry and where I'm at. And for everyone that's out there, you're going to see my face for a very long time because I'm not going anywhere. Sorry, not sorry. But yeah, that's it. To me, it's important. And, if you're providing that level of guidance and support and knowledge, I mean, to me, that's key is taking someone that thinks I can't do it, I don't understand it, and, I don't want to feel stupid. Other people make me feel stupid about, right, investments or the fact that I don't know, certain things. It all starts with just the conversation and working with you over time and being able to see and hit those milestones with you. I mean, that's the pleasure I take out of it and going, okay, I've been able to contribute to the world by helping this person get that much further ahead and just having that level of confidence that they can approach, reviewing their investment statement, or even when they're getting their pension package, they have a level of understanding right on the onset of going, okay, here are my options. And, whether or not I choose to stay with the firm and have them pay me a pension, or I feel like I can take control over this and have it be with someone that I, trust, that's the next step. So different things like that always play a role, and it's very key. Absolutely.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. There's so much opportunity out there for learning in the process. I think if we're too focused on just the achievement of the final outcome, we forget how joyful it can be to see those small wins along the way, to understand that we have the ability and the power to withstand fluctuations, whether it's in our careers or in our financial well-being. Trust in ourselves to get through the tough times in order to enjoy the rewards is so important. Because if we don't cultivate a measure of risk-taking ability consistently throughout our lives, we only ever end up half the people we were meant to be.
Right.
We never get to our full potential on the Maslow's hierarchy, as you talk about.
And that's the self-actualization, people.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Insert little balloons and confetti. To me, that's reaching self-actualization. And many people are in search of it at this point. And this is why, like yourself, Hannah, like the coaching industry, executive coaching industry is so huge and people are needing it more and more, is because you help people uncover their purpose, really uncover their core values and what they can bring every day right, to the table in terms of how they live their lives, how they're contributing back, how they're serving others. And once you've reached that level, you can really start thinking about attaining the aspirational goals on the goal-based triangle. So it all moves in tandem. I'm so happy we got to talk about triangles today. It's the gift of me. But anyway.
We've got your 5 pillars, the 5 bodies, we've got triangles, we've got any shape that you
Yeah,
want. It all comes full circle. There's another one.
all the geometric and mathematical things that make me happy. Yeah, so there you go. There you go. So we covered the 5 pillars essentially. And I think the key things I'm going to challenge everyone out there on some key pieces now in terms of challenging your values and how you're perceiving yourself to be in terms of your cash budgeting, in terms of where you're spending your money. Because I know we got onto this topic of, I don't feel like I'm a very superficial person. And I feel like I'm very calculated in terms of where I'm spending my net money and where I'm saving it. But sometimes my credit card statement may tell me otherwise. And I think that's the challenge to everyone, is write down what you value, what you perceive yourself to be in terms of how you live your life and the standard of living, and then compare that to what your credit card statement is telling you.
It's such an important sort of mirror to hold up to yourself, because self-reported behaviors around what you value are so different from where people actually put their money. So you may consider yourself to be somebody who is prudent, who spends very wisely and practically, who has great self-discipline and self-restraint. And then you'll see that every time you go to that grocery store, you always pick up that expensive magazine that you swear this will be the last time you get it. Yeah. Or you pick up that pair of shoes that's on sale, but it's okay because it's on sale, right? Even though you don't need it. And then, you're not able to pay off your credit card, or you're not meeting minimums on something. So self-reported behavior and actual behavior often tend to differ. And it's because we want to see ourselves in the best possible light.
Right.
There's an aspirational quality to the way that we will describe ourselves to other people. But if we can get real with what our dollars are saying about our values and bring those into alignment with what we want our values to be on that aspirational level, that congruency, that alignment is what allows for breakthroughs in performance, in achievement of financial success, in consistency between what you say and do. Absolutely. And when people start to recognize you as somebody who's consistent in words and actions, you become trusted. You become a leader. You become an advisor. You become somebody who others will invest in because they know not just their money, but their faith and their trust in you is safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we talk about in terms of when we do planning and we run analysis with people, especially the group of individuals that are in that growth stage still, and they're married, they are maybe 10, 15 years away from retirement. They've got young kids, or the ones that are maybe 5, 6 years away from university, where, very much in play is, understanding and testing their values on where their money is going right now. And it's about, how much are you really going to invest in your children's recreational activities versus putting that money and diverting it to post-secondary education? And how much of that is, then, how does that impact your long-term retirement planning and the standard of living that you want at that point? So I find that this is a core conversation piece really for those individuals in that bucket, where they're so caught up in just the day-to-day and wanting to do what's best for the kids, or, giving them good experiences. But then I question and I'll challenge, at what cost?
Yeah, it's true. There is a balance to be struck at any point between short-term needs and the long-term goals. And it's okay for long-term goals to change over time. It's okay for new life situations to arise that shift our direction. What's not okay is to depart from a tried and true strategy. Yeah. You can adjust, but you don't completely obliterate or change trajectories altogether. You adjust the strategy, but your trajectory remains fairly consistent. That's the way to achieve a long-term goal.
Absolutely.
In the short term, recognizing that there are sometimes things that we do need, and we do need to look after ourselves, and we do need to, invest into things now in order to open up doors to the future. I think that's fine. But trading in your future well-being for a pleasure that you could have today at the expense of, your financial security in 5, 10, 20 years, that's not okay. Mm-hmm. There's got to be that balance. At every stage, I think life should be enjoyable. At every stage, you should feel a sense of joy and happiness and satisfaction. But we often do not do ourselves a favor when we overindulge in instant gratification. I think we start to devalue even the things we used to find pleasurable because they've become so diluted by all the other things we've indulged in. It's often those who treat themselves sparingly who appreciate it the most. Absolutely. Rather than those who dine out every day or who buy the nice pair of shoes every day.
And the ones that treat themselves sparingly, I find, are the most happiest.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah. I have been on both extremes. I've had an ascetic period of my life.
Amen. Amen.
Where I spent on nothing. And then I've had the overindulgent period in my life where I thought I've worked so hard, I deserve this. Yeah. And on both extremes, I'm unhappy. It's only when I have a measured way of rewarding myself for good behavior that the pleasure response and the reward mechanisms in our brain actually start to switch on.
Absolutely. And that's when I've been at my happiest, when I'm in that happy medium of both. So there you go. My goodness, Hana, what a wonderful conversation we just had. I feel like we could go on for another hour, but that'll be for next episode, people. So thank you so much, Hana, for joining me today. I think the viewers are going to get good value out of this. I know I have. And why don't you share with everyone, where they can reach you, how they can find you online, and of course your LinkedIn posts are always impeccable, and I want everyone to follow Hana and see what she's got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Please come connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn. You can find me. My handles should be, posted, but my email address is Hana, Hana, at hanadhanji.com. So that's HANADHANJI.com. I take free consultations, so you can book any of those. My calendar shows, spots that are open, and we can discuss how I can help you achieve your goals, assess your values, and, get to the next phase of your performance, whether that's in your career, in your personal life, at the gym, any spectrum. I'm here to help.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much, Hana. I appreciate your time. And to everyone out there listening, if you liked what you saw today, please subscribe to my channel. Be sure to like and share to your friends, family, and followers. Until next time.
Thank you.